Welcome to your Veterans Resource Podcast, Return to Roots. This podcast is for service members and their family members regarding retention, transition, and reintegration from active duty to veterans in the community. Hi, I'm your host, Chris Elder, an active duty senior chief in the United States Navy, and my partner in crime / host is Yogi Hernandez, who's an active duty chief in the Navy. Together, we are documenting our experiences as we prepare to transition and reintegrate into the community. Every podcast will have actionable content that will benefit American service members and their families, as well as those who have already transitioned and reintegrated. We got some exciting news. My Transition Timeline 365 is now on the Android and Apple App Store. Go on there, download it, track your transition timeline, find Return to Roots Mil2Vet inside of the app where you can find new updated episodes and get the most up-to-date information on your transition, because your transition and reintegration into the community is priority. Enjoy the app and enjoy this show. This material is intended for a mature audience. If you have little ears within earshot, please make sure that you listen to it before you allow them to listen. We encourage people to utilize Courage to Call 211 if you have any suicidal ideations, or if you just need somebody to talk to. 211 is a great resource.
Welcome to Return to Roots. This is your host, Yogi and Chris Elder. Today, we're going to have Joshua Dominic Prado. He is and was the person that introduced our first episode 000. And he has been not only a great mentor, a great friend, and a great person to be able to guide us and narrow down our focus a little bit better into what we've been doing. He is and was nominated the Veteran of San Diego of the Year for 2021. He has many accomplishments, many accolades. He was in the Navy. He also did some reserve time. And then on top of that, that wasn't enough. So he decided to turn back around, get some education. And then from there, he wanted to continue helping our brothers and sisters in the military by becoming a specialized mentor for everyone in the military. Right now, today, one of his programs that he has been doing and working on is going to be Workshop for Warriors, and that's what we're going to be focusing today's episode on. Welcome to the show, Josh.
Thanks, Yogi. Good to see you again. Always a pleasure to see you and Chris. So especially now and more we get to know each other, I'm sure that the episodes are going to be a lot more fun as our banter gets better. So yeah, even though it's the end of the day, I am excited to be here. I'm especially grateful that you guys are having me on again to speak about the programs and the things that we're working on right now, this moment, at Workshops for Warriors. So that's what I'll be speaking on. Just to kind of give you a background on that, there is a huge gap in the market for people that are going into trades. That's just in general. So whether it's plumbers, electricians, welders, machinists, just these trades that manufacturing in America is built on. A lot of things have been shipped overseas. A lot of jobs have been impacted by COVID, right? That was such a big crisis and time frame that everybody was worried about. So I'm really excited. Just this January, I came on to help out the recruiting and admissions program for Workshops for Warriors, which is a 501c board audited nonprofit here in San Diego, California. Again, it's called Workshops for Warriors. And what we do is we train and certify and help place veterans in advanced manufacturing careers nationwide. So just to kind of give you the scope of that, when we talk about advanced manufacturing, we're talking about construction, automotive, aerospace. There's so many applications for manufacturing that our graduates from our program can pretty much work anywhere across the nation. To date, we've actually trained over 1,100 or more veterans in certifications, industry-specific certifications, and they've earned over 12,000 industry-recognized certifications. So to give you an idea of that, if you're a welder in the military or a machinist, you may not have the exact up-to-date certifications for the civilian sector. So that doesn't necessarily, just like a corpsman in the military or somebody who does airframes and power plants, when you go to the FAA or you get out of the military, you have to get recertified or you have to get up-to-date certification. So that's one thing that we do very well here. Within a 16-week program, you're going to be up to date and marketable and ready to go for these specific programs that we do. So I'm very excited to be a part of that. And the slogan, actually, just to sum all of that up in one bang up sentence, is what we're doing is we're rebuilding American manufacturing one veteran at a time. And that's something that I can get behind 100%. I'm sure you guys can. Is that, some folks that whatever your MOS or your job was in the military, giving back to our nation in terms of business and manufacturing seems definitely like the way to go.
So with workshops for warriors, what do I have to do to qualify to be able to get into workshop for warriors?
Great question. Some of our students are actually participants of the DoD Skill Bridge program. So if you happen to be active duty and you're looking for a program that's DoD Skill Bridge authorized, you would go through your chain of command and the Skill Bridge, the normal Skill Bridge channels. And then we can send you what you need to be able to come here as an active duty student. Now, if you are a veteran and to get the process started, we would just need a DD-214 as well as your ID to get started there. And although we are workshops for warriors, specifically geared towards active duty and veterans, we are not only inclusive to military, we do have options for civilians as well. So we don't want to pigeonhole ourselves into just only the military and veteran component for students. So basic enrollment process, admissions process that involves, identification, an assessment of your mathematical skills. If you do want to go into something like machining, for me, common misconceptions around these kinds of things is that they are non-technical. Now, where somebody who's a welder may want to work with their hands and be more mechanically inclined and want to do things like underwater welding or work on shipbuilding or work at a motorcycle manufacturer, something like that, the machining side of the house, they actually learn things like CAD and CAM programming, SolidWorks. So there's actually a lot of software and design components on the machining side. So there is an aptitude test for the mathematics of the machining program. But yeah, other than that, you don't got to take an SAT again. You don't have to take an LSAT or anything like that. It's pretty easy to qualify for the program from a skill standpoint.
Now, Josh, since for me, right, I haven't gone to a school since I joined the Navy, maybe I've lost touch with my mathematics. What level of mathematics or arithmetic do you think would be the minimum to be a successful graduate or to be able to apply to a machining program?
It would be at the level of just and the reason why we have the high school GED as a component or a qualifier for it is that you would need to, be able to do geometry, algebra, and basic trigonometry. I don't want that to scare anybody, because that's just, when it comes to that is part of the training for the program, is for us to brush up on practical mathematical skills that you need if you're going to be measuring a part or, designing something. There is geometry, trigonometry, and basic like mathematics there at a high school level. So you don't need to be a whiz, but that is part of the reason that we have that as a assessment tool on that side. Now, on the welding side, you're not going to use as much of that as you would in programming on a CAD and CAM and the SolidWorks platforms, but it is something that you can factor in. If you're a little bit more mathematically inclined, then you may sway towards our machining program, which again is really, really cool. When you're talking about CNC machining, we're cutting things with water jet machines. We have a class 1 laser on site. We have the CNC mills and the CNC lathes that you can set up 24 different kinds of tooling on the machine and get that plugged in, so you can make different parts and get your certifications for each part that you can manufacture. So yeah, it is exciting. We have a lot of state-of-the-art equipment that you work on hands-on. So if you're the kind of person who doesn't want to, be specifically, an IT person, and you're 100% behind the desk every single day, and you're somebody who, wants to work with your hands a lot more, wants to be part of the production and manufacturing industry, this is definitely, when we talk about advanced manufacturing, we're talking about 3D printing, we're talking about different kind additive manufacturing, which is advanced manufacturing, is where things are going, with 3D printing. So getting ahead of the curve, knowing the basic things right now, the basic fundamentals. There are a few people in MOSs that already have welding and machining under their belt, maybe some aircraft mechanics and whatnot. But for most people, especially with our demographic, with the military, you're either, technical, hands-on, and quality assurance. Those are the baseline of skills that you need to get into our program. You don't need any more than that.
So Workshop for Warriors, do they partner with industries and also help with placement?
Yes, we do. As far as industry partnerships, when you go on the welding side, the American Welding Society, all of our students get plugged into the student chapters across the nation. So for example, the AWS, chapter lead is one of our main instructors. Actually, one of our deans is actually a big part of the San Diego chapter for American Welding Society. And then Mastercam University, NIMS, if you're on the machining side, if somebody looks at your resume, they want to see that you have NIMS certifications, and that stands for the National Institute for Manufacturing Skills. So these are not just things that were made up that are military specific. They're not things that are just like internal things that we make up. These are national certifications and credentials that you can take with you when you go back to your next destination post-military.
Awesome, Josh. Wow, this is so. I've personally taken a tour of the facilities, and I was blown out of the water. And I remember, if I didn't say this then, I remember thinking that this was every child's fantasy come true, or at least the people that I hang out with, right? I have my own homemade laser that I use when I'm out in Japan. I've always wanted to have a CNC machine, and honestly, all I've done is like guess and play around with all these kind of things. I've always wanted to learn how to weld. I even bought myself a welder, but I don't know how to do any of it. But this is awesome, and just like you said, the facilities are legitimate, state of the art. The machines are state of the art. If I remember correctly, there was about over 40 welding little cubicles with all the tools and everything to have yourself, your individual classroom to practice after hours. So with that, I want to ask you, what are the timelines for like completing a specific program? I know, I would assume that every program has a specific timeline. So if you can tell us more about that.
Yes, yeah. The program itself is a 16-week program from start to finish. As far as the benchmarks within each program, it's different from the welding and the machining, as far as like the minimum certifications that you have. So it does go in a linear path as far as what you're learning, and then you're spending time in the classroom part of the day, and then part of the day you may be spending time doing hands-on, doing your qualifications as well, as far as kind of the makeup of the program. I may have mentioned that, there are a basic amount of certifications that every student will earn, for example, maybe 10 to 15 NIMS certifications for the machinist, but depending on how quick the aptitude of the individual student, there is a option or the availability for that particular student to earn more certifications than the standard set. So it's not going to be the same graduating amount for each individual person. They'll get the same minimum qualifications, but as far as advancing on your own time, you can earn more qualifications. And there are a lot of our students that go from welding 1, they go through the basic class, maybe on the SkillBridge program. They end up getting out, that December or whatever the time that their ETS, EAS time is. And then they end up liking it and wanting to go into the advanced class like welding 2 or machining 1 and machining 2. So leading up to our next, the next year or so here, we're going to be having 6 programs, or 6 courses, which are welding 1, 2, and 3, as well as machining 1, 2, and 3 to go through the advanced skill sets. So those folks that have a little bit more time to sit back and do a lot more learning, because I don't want people, but just like we talked about this before, just rushing into the first job and the first thing right after the military. Take some time to learn. It may be welding, it may be manufacturing, it may be cybersecurity, whatever that it is. The more time you get to invest in yourself, then the more you can offer to the organizations after. It's not always going to be you're going to get everything all at once in a 16-week course. If you have the time and maybe you've got extra leave or you've got extra time on your timeline, a lot of us been working for 10, 20 years in the military, rushing back into a job right away, unless you absolutely have to, take the luxury, use your benefits, go through the process of getting your transition from military to civilian life squared away. And that's not an easy thing. That's the whole reason why I love what you guys are doing, because it takes all of us to say, hey, how's your disability stuff going? How's your school going? How's your interview stuff going? And, having somebody to bounce all that stuff off of, just not doing that alone. I think it helps to just have you don't want too big of an echo chamber, but you want a couple people here and say, hey, Chris, where you at on your stuff? Oh, I'm good. Yogi, where you at on moving from this location or this duty station to your new house after the military? It's a lot of things to do all at once. So what we do and what we would like to see in our community is helping each other out and serving our community, just like we served the country before. It's in our blood. And so it's something that doesn't, it's not necessarily money based, like, okay, I'm doing all this stuff because ultimately I want to make a lot of money or I want to work in this industry. Yes, you need to feed your family. You need to invest in and be able to earn a good living. But not only that is what we do is helping each other out, making life easier for the next person.
One thing I want to make sure that we address is, what about the housing? Do you have housing options for people that are going through the program?
We do actually. Part of the facility access, as you mentioned, because I know both of you guys have come to our facility, is we do have temporary housing access for students that need it. So not if you are listening to this, or if you are out of state and you're going to come through our program, you can come out here, you can stay with us, potentially. That's something that you can apply for, is low cost housing options, or maybe like a work study type program that we work out. A lot of things are done on an individual basis based on needs. So we don't have like 100 apartments, but we have some temporary living assignments that are available. We have a galley, we have food for our students, we have a clothing closet, we have a lot of other things that support our students, from housing to food to other accommodations. So,
do you have a straight up, 6 o'clock in the morning, and then finish by 12, go to lunch, and then 4 o'clock finish, and then the building is shut down? Or how does your facility work? How does it operate?
Well, yeah, we have a standard student calendar and setup for, from 7 to 4 or 8 to 5. There are some days where there's holidays. There's some days that are going to be specifically set up to work on qualifications. So it's not the entire time, 7 to 4 for 16 weeks. There are some adjustments within there for different things. And some of those things, to give an example to touch on, is every group, we have a spring, we have a summer, and we have a fall term or cohort, if you will. They have a month before the graduation, we host a career fair. So we make sure that companies come that are interested in hiring our students, and they get access to the students via a career fair that we have that the employers can register for. So we are still open to register if you got any employers or recruiters are listening. And not only with the career fair, leading up to the career fair, we have a mentor and career services sessions where we make sure that they have the prep on LinkedIn's, resumes, mentorship, and some of the other services that things that are very important for us to have long-term success. So last week's was with ACP, American Corporate Partners. We had Eric Brew, who's the head of one of their military program there, come on and speak about the free mentorship program that ACP offers. You guys have probably heard about that program as well. I'm a mentor on that platform, and so I'm assigned to somebody, and they have access to me for a year. And so for them, they can put in, I want to mentor like somebody specific to manufacturing or finance or entrepreneurship. It can be whatever type of thing, but they get a high level mentor through ACP, and that's going to help them in the rest of their career as well. So we're trying to give everybody as much skills as they can, not only just the technical skills, but the life skills that we may have already earned some of those in the military, like, you can lead a team and XYZ, but there's some things that are specific to the civilian sector and specific to career advancement that are really good to touch on. So,
what about the Wounded Warriors programs? You guys have anything that helps people that maybe need some access assistance?
Yes. As far as like, I guess we're veterans here. So speaking to like a disabled veterans community itself, one of the reasons that this program was even started, it was that we wanted to, the founder and CEO, his name is Hernan Luisi Prado. He was inspired basically because he saw some of his brothers and sisters, like we all do, come back from overseas, whether they were physically broken or or having difficulties in other ways, having trouble reintegrating into society. So one of those things that we always are having struggles with sometimes is reintegration with employment, with housing, with resources. So these are some of the key things that we provide. And number one is to be able to earn a livable wage in the United States with a skill that doesn't take very long to pick up. So as far as accommodations and things, we have had multiple students that come through the program, and speaking from a disabled veteran, myself, and many others, those accommodations can be physical, they can be in other areas as well. So we want to kind of make sure that everybody gets the support that they need.
That's awesome, man. And so we are in March, and you're going to be a March release because you're especially in our hearts and in our minds and in our souls. So with all that being said, do you have special accommodations for females? Do you have preference? Are they even allowed to be there, since we're talking about heavy equipment, machinery? I know this is a different century nowadays, but there's still a barrier, or I should say a interpretation and or late comfort zone with a lot of people. So maybe they don't see themselves as being able to do that. Can you talk about that?
Well, one thing that I hate is for people, and hate is a strong word, is for people to think that they can't do something because of something as simple as the color of your skin, your gender, what branch of the military you're in, how long you were in the military. We are a very diverse group when we're speaking about the military and veteran community. I was reading something the other day, and it was about how diverse, one of the narratives around re-educating society and integrating in society is for them to understand that the military community, speaking about you and me and Chris, and we're very diverse. There's hundreds of jobs and thousands of different opportunities and experiences while you're in the military, some combat, some non-combat, some special forces, some maintenance, some administration. So no matter what, we're a very diverse group. When it comes to corporate America, we fall under, when it comes to like hiring and employment and training, we fall under diversity, equity, and inclusion hiring pipeline. So when it comes to creating opportunities for people to leave the military and go into the job market or into the manufacturing sector, they bucket us under military. But within that, you have very diverse groups of people, men, women, whatever, every single kind of background, and making sure that we're inclusive to all those different backgrounds as well is a challenge. But one way that we're addressing that challenge here is not only do we have American Welding Society. The other day I brought in a guest on a tour who is helping put together the Women's in Manufacturing Conference here in San Diego. So there are groups that are even more diverse than just civilian population down to the military population, but we also within that have Marine veteran, military spouse, woman in manufacturing. So we are also addressing those specific, very, very specific needs, not just a need for a company to hire somebody because it's a woman or because they're a veteran, but to support those communities long-term, because they need their community too. Like maybe you feel left out because there are plenty of, for example, plenty of female veterans that are in our program that I'm sure would benefit from being part of the Women's in Manufacturing Conference or the San Diego chapter for Women's in Manufacturing, or whatever specific initiatives are called for in those groups. So I think it's going to be in September or October is the time frame for that. I'll get more information on that one, but it's going to be later this year.
Hey, Josh, like this program, Workshops for Warriors, it's got everything rolled in. They've trained over 11,000. Is it 11,000 or 1,100 veterans?
1,100 actually.
1,100. Yeah. Okay, my bad. So, Workshop for Warriors has trained over 1,100 veterans. They have 16-week programs. They can use the Skill Bridge program. They could also be a veteran, bring in your DD-214, but also they help out regular old Joes and Janes that want to get into manufacturing. So take a look at them. It's not just welding, it's not just manufacturing, but there's also a mathematics side to it as well. So they get really into the advanced stuff. So they have level 1, level 2, and level 3 on their welding and manufacturing classes. So take a look at it. Wounded Warrior, it's friendly to wounded warriors. They can help you out. And if you need housing because you're in a temporary situation, they're going to be able to help you out. I just want to kind of reiterate that Workshops for Warriors is bringing back manufacturing, and our manufacturing back in World War II used to be the best, and we're bringing it back. It is growing within America right now. You're going to see a regeneration of manufacturing coming back to the States, and Workshops for Warriors is bringing it back. And soon we'll be able to celebrate victories like back when the USS Midway was built in 17 months by Rosie the Riveter. Think about that, 17 months, and that thing is still floating in San Diego Bay. You guys should go check it out. So thank you for bringing the Workshop for Warriors, man.
Yeah, I can't speak enough, say enough good things about the program. Kind of leading into, what I've done and where I come from is helping veterans go into their next career, finding their next mission and learning how to network and help the community 360. But my experience in doing that in other industries, I'm more than happy to bring that here to the manufacturing, to what the mission is. Again, like to reiterate, the mission is to rebuild American manufacturing one veteran at a time. So, and when I say that, it seems like kind of like such a, it's like a buzzwords type thing. But if you think about it, we've been doing that, for a long time anyway. This is just really creating like a laser focus and a highlight on specifically, what we do and how we do it. And being a veteran owned and operated, program allows us to have more control and more impact on doing that. So it could be somebody who wants to, work on the next generation of unmanned aircraft and work on government contracts and wants to contribute to that side of manufacturing. Or it could be somebody who's a retiree who wants to just add that skill set. They have an opportunity to go to school for 16 weeks or do a couple more programs and learn how to do to manufacture their own parts, to create custom parts for a motorcycle, or 3D print something really, really cool that they want to produce. Think about how big that, how wide that creates the scope for veteran entrepreneurs. And not just this is not just re-career into your first job post-military. This can also be, hey, we've got guys that are retired, retired Navy SEALs to retiring chiefs and gunny sergeants, that they're not necessarily going through the program because they're jumping into an entry-level manufacturing job, although we do a really good job at doing that and making sure that our students, our average salary for the students is $60,000 and that they're above the livable wage in where we live, which is San Diego, which is hard enough in itself. But it can be just picking up a new skill set and adding that to your resume, adding that to your pocket, and you're adding that to your kit, that you know how to not only whatever you did for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years in the military, but, oh, by the way, I also run my own business. And by the way, I can also print parts on a 3D printer. And also I can write code and use SolidWorks, like you're going to be so marketable because you know how to do all these different things. So, take advantage of the education and training that you can get. And if you need help with that, navigating your benefits, navigating your educational path, or navigating your next job, I'm here for it.
Hey, family, you guys just heard Josh. There's no buzzwords in Workshops for Warriors. They actually care about their people. They even have clothing for interviewing for jobs. They have a whole entire pantry that's just stocked full of stuff. So there's so many things that we can't really cover in a little bit at a time. You guys really need to check out Workshops for Warriors. Maybe not for yourself, but maybe for that other veteran or military member that's going through this process that needs some kind of guidance. Josh and his team over there at Workshops for Warriors is your best bet. Josh, I really want to go into how you got into where you're at today, brother. So let's start off, man. Where'd you get your start, man? Where you from? What'd you do in the Navy? What'd you do after the Navy, man? Like, let's hear the story of Josh.
Well, as you know, I'm pretty much an open book when it comes to those kinds of questions, but fairly interesting enough. What are some particulars about me? I'm born and raised in San Diego, California. My roots, my return to roots, both my grandparents came over from the Philippines as Navy. They were Navy chiefs, and so I come from a lineage of service. My dad was a Marine Corps, is a Marine veteran as well, and so it's my heritage comes from the military. So before I joined the service, I was just into sports, and 9/11 happened. I think I was like a junior, or actually, no, I was a sophomore in high school. And like many others in the consecutive years after that, wanted to help serve my country and also find a way to, pay for my education. And, so it was a combination of things that, made me interested in joining the military. I then joined and got into the Navy, working on fighter aircraft, F-18 specifically, for the majority of my career. It's part of some strike fighter units, as well as some HSCs, like one here in, there you go. You got a few of them on there. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, we'll fly anything once.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I was in aviation. Worked on F-18s and a HSC 85 in Coronado. I ended up spending, seems like not too long ago, but I ended up spending about 10 or 11 years total. And going back to school, I did pull the trigger on getting, using my GI Bill and using a number of other resources so that way I can further my education. And to sum it all up, I don't want to drag it on too much, but the reason why I do what I do and how I came to want to help the community was because I felt like I wish I would have known all of these things a lot sooner. There's so many resources and so many things that you can tap into. And when I got out of the military, I was, from an on paper standpoint, it wasn't like my trajectory looked like it was going to be very good because I did not have a college degree. I was enlisted. I'm a minority. Like all the odds, I felt like for the demographic that I made up were stacked against me because of a lack of knowledge about the resources. Not a lack of resources, but a lack of knowledge about the resources that could help make me successful. Whether that's tapping into your VA benefit to buy a house, whether that's maximizing your GI Bill and your programs like Voc Rehab and once, so that way you can get multiple degrees when you're in the getting out of the military. Whether that's finding a community that helps you to start your own business and be supported in business ownership. Those are a lot of the things that I wish I would have known a lot sooner. And so I, just like you guys are doing, is I did a lot of research, a lot of recon intel, if you will, about what resources are out there for other veterans to use. And so that I can be able to, and we can help everybody from the lowest person on the totem pole, the person that you think is going to be a screw up after the military because they just weren't any good, or they didn't have a successful career. That's okay. Everybody gets the same benefits or has access to a lot of the same resources, whether they were 4 years as a fighter pilot or 4 years as a cook, so it's not the end all be all. Whatever you did in the military, think of it as it was just a stepping stone. So I try not to harp on what it was that we did exactly in the military. Like, Yogi, you could have been, airframes. Chris, you could have been infantry. I could have been aviation. Okay, cool. But that's in the past. And then going in the future, in the present, you have these resources. You have X amount of resources to use. And if you use them well, and if you surround yourself with the right mentors, then I think you're going to end up being able to better yourself. And just a rising tide lifts all ships, right? So that's at the end of the day, that's what we're doing.
So Josh, I'd like to talk about how you became and why you became nominated as the Veteran of the Year.
Actually, so that for 2021, 2022, I was fortunate to be nominated as the veteran and awarded the Veteran of the Year for San Diego County, which was a special award to get for me, just because it justifies again that what I'm doing is I'm in my calling, and I'm doing something that's important. However, there were and are many other veterans that are doing the same, if not more, kinds of things as me. There's, tons and tons of other awards and things that people could get. But the reason that I was awarded that was I was nominated by a local nonprofit and put up for being a Veteran of the Year at the Veterans Museum in Balboa Park. And before me were other people that I consider role models to me. And specifically in the last 2 years, I've worked with a lot of employment initiatives, charity events, fundraisers, try to find unique and effective ways to reach our community. So that way, however it happens, this podcast, this information, it's not only housed in a dark corner where only the Navy chiefs and the SWOs and these people only know about this information, but it gets to somebody, and somehow, some way, they found out about you and me and all these different organizations, and they get the link to the podcast, or they get the link to the website, or whatever that it is, on Instagram, Facebook, in person, online, whatever platform that they prefer, because it's hard. Not everybody's going to have the opportunity to access the same information in the same kind of way. I mean, I might just be like some guy who's on Camp Pendleton on post, going through my Instagram. I might find that information there, while somebody else may go to, a formal breakfast, for their program and get the information there. But either way, everybody should get access to the information. So I'm a big promoter of force multiplication and using unique ways to get to the different unique people in our community, all ages, all backgrounds, not just specific to SOF and special forces or pilots or you know, or chiefs or whatever that it is. You know, we're all on the same team when it comes to surviving the civilian world, and not just surviving, but thriving and being able to have a good time after.
Once you're a veteran, you're a veteran. That's what a lot of people don't see, especially being inside.
Yeah. Yeah, you're part of the brotherhood. Now, I mean, there's the brotherhood that is like that soft community, and that's the, you know, quote unquote, the brotherhood. But I'm a big believer in that, you know, us creating that same camaraderie and that same closeness that keeps us further away from isolation, homelessness, suicide. We all band together. You know, people that are civilians see the movie Band of Brothers, and they see all that stuff. And I don't want it to just be talk. Like, we actually are living it. So I got your back, you got my back.
Brother, and you definitely epitomize I got your back, because we reached out to you and you came out and you supported us right away. There was no question. You just came up to us and was like, this is exactly how it is. And the thing is follow up. We kept following up with you. And, you know, when you actually find something, a resource that Josh has talked about in all of his social media platforms, he lists all these great organizations that you should check out. The thing is don't just like hit them up once and expect an answer. You got to follow up. And one thing I really want to kind of follow up on is, tell us a little bit about how you use the GI Bill and other education programs to get to where you're at in your education. And also, can you tell us where you are at in your education?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was in, I did like many others, like the maintenance schedule, the op tempo was always high.
Stand by for technical difficulties. They will happen.
So we were so electrifying that the
power shorted
it out. Yeah.
I was telling Chris that you're so awesome that you just blew one of the cell phone towers over there where you're at.
We blew a fuse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Reset the breaker.
I heard the chuckle in the background. Hey, Josh, I want to get back to your education. What was your education experience like once you got out of the military?
So actually, yeah, that's a good part to get into. My whole life, I was not the best student. Just to let all of the folks that are listening that are, you know, Cambridge and Harvard scholars and whatnot. I actually was, I was always like a 3.2 student. Like, I just passed enough to play basketball. And in the military, you know, I was able to pass my technical schools, and college wasn't something that I was super set on. And I'm sure many of the folks that are listening that joined the military, non-commissioned officers, you know, school wasn't their first priority, obviously, to join the service. But to that point, what I learned when it came to education is, when you're up against the fence and you're going to go do something, school is always a major component. You have to go to, if you're Navy, you go to A school and C school. You know, if you're whatever other branches, you have to go to school to learn a new skill, especially if that's going to be your primary skill set. So deciding on going back to school after the military, for a lot of folks is difficult. So I decided to go back to school when I was 24. So it was back in 2010. That's when I had my daughter, and I had to worry about something other than just me to feed. So it was not an option at that point for me to go back to school and earn more money, and better myself from an education standpoint. I wasn't settled enough with my finances to not take that into account, was to go back to school. So my daughter was my inspiration for furthering my education post-military. What happened was only had maybe 2 semesters worth of college when I was in, going into the military. Obviously, you earn a few things from your MOSs and your NECs and all those things when you're in the military. But still, when I finished up, I didn't have, I had less than a year's worth of college on my transcript. Fast forward to going back to school, 2010, when I had my daughter, I nonstop. I used my GI Bill to go to school for business. So I did a business degree, associates, and then a bachelor's through University of Phoenix while I was working and while I was still in the reserves. And then I turned around and actually got hired at University of Phoenix on their military team. When you work at a school, that's another way. If any of you guys are, trying to look at a life hack, is working for a school. Sometimes they'll pay for your school again. So they were able to pay for my master's program through working at the school. And I did a master's in education. And then I was able to use the rest of my GI Bill towards an MBA. And that helped a lot. So, not significantly, I was able to have more opportunities. Being a college graduate, also graduating with my master's, I was able to teach engineering and technical training in the semiconductor manufacturing industry. So my world just completely started to open up with more and more school that I had. And it wasn't just one thing, it was just a compounding interest of the grit and the grind that we have from the military. So yes, you have high school athletes, you've got, not non-college going into the military, then you've got, your hard charging years while you're in the military and working on jets and aircraft and learning a technical skill. And then you add on, okay, and now I'm a college graduate. And then you add on, I'm using, you start to use all these things and they all start to add up to where the momentum of that creates opportunities. And so I used my GI Bill. I used basically tuition reimbursement from school. I did use Dantes and CLEP. If you got anybody that's on deployment or has access to like a college on base type of thing, they have Dantes and CLEP, and you can test out of things at a very low cost, if not free. You can, instead of spending an entire semester of your GI Bill, if you have the opportunity to go and take a test for like $150, you can test out of certain subjects that are really, really easy. Just like there's like some social sciences and some very easy general ed courses that you can test out of through Dantes and CLEP. So let me hit on that. And you got your GI Bill or your skill bridge and all that good stuff. And there are also another few programs that are very, they're not that well known. You guys might touch on them in other podcasts that are coming up, but the VA has a couple other programs. One is called Vet Tech. If you've got at least 1 day of GI Bill on your e-benefits, you can get free school for high-tech programs through a program called Vet Tech. It's VET-TEC. There's also one called VRAP. You can use, we actually are qualified to use VRAP here. VRAP is if you have 0 GI Bill and you're unemployed, they give you another voucher to go to school with called VRAP. So there's Vet Tech for high tech, there's VRAP, and then you got your GI Bill. And then also those of you guys who are going through a process to qualify for vocational rehabilitation or VRNE, that's another program that you can tap into, to which I'm going to be using here coming up for a doctoral program that can help you to get even more education. So you can get as much education as you pretty much get after if you're figuring out how to leverage your benefits. So those of you guys that are not considering going to school and think that you're already good to go, maybe that's the case. Maybe you make enough money, maybe you're doing enough things, maybe you're at you think you're at the capacity of school that you're going to need to do. That's fine, but I think the more school and the more learning that you get to do on the dime of the military, and also because of the fact that you're able to do it, don't waste those things. I think, if you guys agree, you're sitting on a benefit that costs you time, energy, money, stress, for, it's worth it. And so you investing in yourself through education is something that I've always been a big advocate for. You deserve it. So if you want to be a doctor, be a doctor. If you want to get an MBA, get an MBA. If you want to be a advanced, CNC machinist, then there is money and there are programs that the military, that the VA has, or there are some different ways for you to, creative ways to fund your education.
So I love that you focus on that portion of the funding, right? One of the lawyers that I'm talking to here through the military because of my medical board, he put it into perspective by saying, hey, Chief, you can choose to put in your papers or you can choose to go through the med board. It's up to you. However, the military, when you signed up, they wrote a blank check with your name on it. You can either choose to claim 50 cents or you can choose to charge what you're actually owed. And that is up to you to determine what that is. And obviously it has to be accurate. You cannot, I wouldn't recommend anyone to try to lie about what they need, but use the programs. It's already out there for you before you join. That's what you've been working for, right? So it is entitled to you. It is owed to you. It is up to you to use them if you choose to.
And on that note, yeah, I mean, I think that for a lot of folks, they spend they all this time in the military, and at the very end, they spend this much time on school or on themselves or on, those programs are there. So that way, if you do want to spend the next 6 months or year or even 2 years being in school, it's okay. That is perfectly, there's resources that can allow you and buy you that time to figure out, quote unquote, what you want to do when you grow up or what you want to do after the military. We hear that all the time, but majority of the interactions that we have with transitioning veterans is they either get out of the military and they jump right into the workforce. They may go back to school and maybe use their GI Bill one time to get an MBA or get their degree, but it's still such a small little portion that they give themselves. Knowing more about the programs and spending more time in education and training right after the military, I think is one of the best investments that you can make.
I really do appreciate you sharing not just the educational benefits, not just the workshop for warriors. There is so many other things that you shared in here. I heard ACP mentioned. I heard, did you mention veteran, was it Vet CTAP?
No, I didn't mention that. There's so many others. I know you're going to
There's so many resources. And Josh, we do appreciate you coming on here, man. And we're going to slide over to the next ending questions. Do you have any podcasts or books that you recommend for service members or veterans or even family members to listen to that could help them through their process?
I'm going to go with an active podcast right now. And I introduced you to the host of it. I've been on the show a few times, so I'm a little biased, but there's a podcast called the Ambitious Vet Podcast. There's all kinds of topics that they touch on there, but it's to help with understanding and finding what motivates and retains your energy and motivation towards your career, not just for transitioning out of the military, but that continuous day-to-day grind that you have, maybe once you've already got into the career that you want to get into. So the majority of the listeners, or maybe some of the listeners here, are just doing that military from active duty to civilian transition. Ambitious Vet podcast covers more so, okay, now you've got out of the military. Now you work in sales or manufacturing or whatever, entrepreneurship, whatever that it is. Now you're there. Now what do we need to learn from that point? Is it building community? Is it, whatever that it is, defining what those things are? Ambitious Vet podcast covers a lot of those success after service topics.
Yeah, Chris Hoffman's a good dude. He's a Marine Corps vet. He got out and was hanging out around the same time that you got out too, right? Aren't you guys buds from back in the day too?
Yeah.
I reached out to him. I'm telling you, he is a genuine good person. He just really wants to help people, and his podcast is pretty good. So thanks for recommending that. Chris is a good dude, and Chris, I hope to have you on Return to Roots here shortly. That was the Ambitious Vet podcast. I'm a listener and subscriber as well too, brother.
Yeah, so I'd recommend that one. And then as far as books, I would say, I haven't brought this one up. I mean, a lot of the listeners are going to know the military motivators like Goggins and Jocko and some of the others as well. But I'm going to go back to some old school stuff. So anything John Maxwell. He's got tons of books on leadership. I'm a big John Maxwell fan, so you can pick any single one of those ones, or Stephen Covey. So both
of them are beautiful. I mean, John Maxwell, I've listened to him for the last 10, 15 years, and you cannot get enough knowledge. It's beyond words. Speaking of that, going back in time, if you could, so it's going to be a twofold question, right? It's going to be, if you could go back in time before you even joined the Navy and you met yourself, what advice would you give yourself? And then the second one, which is going to be the next fold, is going to be, before you got out of active duty, what advice would you give your transitioning service member about when to start the transition and how to prepare yourself and stuff like that?
Okay, so those are two. So the first one you said was like your 18-year-old self.
Yeah.
So
just finishing high school.
Yeah.
You're about to engage in life. What advice would you give yourself?
I would say creating a plan to focus on and counter your weaknesses. So in my case, a practical example is that I'm a very social person. I want to do things all the time. So that requires time, that requires money. So if you're a very social person, you're always going to give a lot of your time and money away, versus knowing that that is a special and amazing thing to be an extrovert and to be like how we are, where we enjoy people's company and we enjoy going places and doing things. But the Achilles heel of that is that, is to understand that can also be a weakness. So if I, as much as I love living in the moment, as much as I love doing things, if I had invested money or invested in specifically that pertains, that's a weakness of people in my personality type that are extroverted, is that we live in the moment all the time. So we don't make a lot of long-term investments. So in any capacity, financial, physical, so thinking more long-term, basically I would advise for myself to invest in the long-term, not just living in the moment, even though that is also a skill and something that I enjoy too. As far as getting out of the military, would be and we mentioned this before, so I'm just going to keep mentioning it again, is don't go at it alone. If you're transitioning out of the military, there's so many different things that you have to do all at once that are just in a way equally important. Where am I going to go to school? What am I going to do for work? How do I find a community? How do I use my resources for my education, for buying a house, and all these different things? There's so many of them that you do need to surround yourself with a squad, with a team, and make sure that you use the buddy system on the way out as well. Whether it's 1, 2, or 3, you're better off in a team, and that's the whole reason why when we deploy or when we do things, we do them as a team, and not to be an individual and think that we're gonna hack it by ourselves. I think we know that's what we do in the military, so we should do that after. That's something that doesn't that definitely translates to the civilian world.
Brother, it was great to have you on here, man. And your end device, don't do it by yourself, is what Return to Roots is all about. We are a tribe here. You're definitely a tribe member, and we added you to the Return to Roots Mil2Vet as a group expert for people to be able to hit you up and also kind of find you. Speaking of find you, where else can we find you? What's a good way for people to get a hold of you?
So by email, feel free to reach me at jp at wfw.org in reference to workshops for warriors. You can easily find me on LinkedIn. You may want to search all 3 names. So Joshua, Dominic, and then Prado, that's Prado on LinkedIn. You can also find me on Instagram at jp.mill, MILLL, as well as on all platforms at Vetted Talent Network. So that's going to be V as in Victor, E as in Echo, T as in Tango, D as in Delta. Talent Network is another one of my accounts on Instagram, Facebook, and on LinkedIn. So, but message me on any platform. Message me by email. If it's not related specifically to workshops for warriors, you can reach me at vettedtalentnetwork@gmail.com.
Awesome, bro. Well, we would like to say our goodbyes. And again, thank you for coming. It's always a pleasure, an honor, and a privilege to be in your company. So thank you so much.
You guys rock. All right. Go Navy. Let me know if you need anything else. Once again, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. I hope you guys listen to the other episodes as well as we continue the journey with Return to Roots. And signing off. Hope you guys learn as much as possible. And once again, this is a catalyst. So I'm happy to be part of what you guys are doing. Thanks once again, and I'll talk to you soon.
You guys all heard Josh. Thanks to him for coming on. We got a really great story, workshops for warriors. Check it out. Education resources, a lot of great stuff was in this episode. But we all have a common theme here. It's about your transition from the military, and it is your transition, no one else's. So take charge of your transition. And just remember, not everything in life is rainbows and unicorns. Return to Roots out. Do us a solid, share this content with everyone you know, regardless if they're associated with the military or not. This content will help someone you know, and hopefully will lessen the deadly gap after service. Our goal is to do whatever we can to reduce the number of suicides from 22 to 0 within the community. Give us a 5-star review follow, like, and subscribe. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, TikTok, and you can follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram for more content from our guests. These are our personal experiences, and we do not represent the views of the United States Navy and/or the Department of Defense. Your transition is ultimately up to you. Please do your research and ask questions. Use Master Chief Google or ask a friend and network within the community that you belong to. Return to Roots out.